goodness. Here we are. It's Museum Minds Day, our favorite day of the year. Allison, I see you celebrating too. Fantastic. Love it. So many good faces. I love it. Cindy, hello. We had some emails this month. Fantastic. I'm sure everybody is just jealous of our emails we get to have together. So good. I love it when the waiting room just like keeps refilling. Angela, it's so good to see you. I'm glad that you were able to make it. We also had messages this month. So good. So good. Well, it's time. You're in the right place. We're getting clickable today. Oh my goodness. I love it when Rainey teaches. She's such a good teacher and she's such a knowledgeable person when it comes to all of this goodness. So, with that being said, there is a lot of content today. Oh my goodness. We have so many good tips and tricks. And as always, Rainey's going to bring the fun and always the good examples. So let's get right to it. You are in the right place. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We are not gatekeepers here at all. So if you're okay with people reaching out to you, feel free to put your contact information in the chat box so that people can become your new museum besties. So go ahead and do that. Rainey, you're in charge of slides today. So can you give me the next one?
Absolutely. And I just went too far. So here we
No,
go.
that's okay. We are
There
on
we go.
record.
We
And,
are on
we
record.
have a whole thing about recording. And you should have gotten a notification that this is recording and we're double checking. Yes, we are recording and it is a good day. All righty. So, next one. Rainy, you want to give me another slide? Yes. What is this meetup all about? This is Museum Minds. It's a monthly call that we do as museum people because we want to make sure that there's information out to the museum collective because oftentimes we don't get together as museum people on a regular basis. So we wanted to make sure that you could do that and also because there's good information out there and we wanted everybody to be able to listen in on our conversations, hear a little bit more. It's so fantastic. One of my favorite days of the month. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to go ahead and put my do not disturb on real quick. Got it. Here's our agenda. We take just a few minutes at the beginning for this housekeeping side, introductions, all that stuff. Then we have about 30 minutes of interactive learning. We say ish because oftentimes we can hardly contain ourselves and we want to give more information. And then we leave the rest of the time for Q&A in the large group. And of course, with
Oh,
our communities of Museum Mind or Museum Leaders Academy and Art Meets Strategy, we have a fun after party. So if you're interested in hearing more about the community or your members, feel free to stay on after the call to hear a little bit more about our communities. And that goes for about 30 minutes afterwards. All right, so who are we? What are we? Why are we here? We answered some of those questions already, but Rainey, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself quickly.
absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Rainey Robison. It's pronounced rainy like the weather. My business is Neptune Sugar, and I help arts and culture organizations with their branding, messaging, and storytelling so they can keep deepen connections with their audiences. I also run an online marketing community as well as courses, and I will talk about those at the very end. What do you do, Beth?
Oh my goodness. I am Beth Housewort, and I never thought about this, but we don't actually have our names on this slide. We have our company names,
We'll
but
add them
not our
later.
actual names. You can see them on the descriptor there on your Zoom box. I'm Beth Housewort, and I am a 25-year children's museum and playful goodness museum vet who helps emerging museums and new museums professionals get a jump start on industry knowledge. Oftentimes that comes with trainings, strategic consulting, on-site visits, all kinds of good stuff. So I'm here to help and help museum folks feel more like museum folks. So that's me at Inspired Impact. If at any time you want to chat with us or those introductions just made you say, I might need to know a little bit more about these people. Here are two QR codes to just grab a little time with either of us to talk museums, to talk marketing, to talk staff training, to talk branding, all kinds of good stuff. Rainey and I independently run our own businesses, and we're just besties who come together to do this call every single month. So reach out to us if you have questions or you want to brainstorm. Awesome. Awesome. What next? All right. So we're about ready to jump in on Let's Get Clickable. Rainey, take it away.
Let's do this. So, yes, let's get clickable. So, today we are going to be talking specifically about website, email, and social media. But before we do, I wanted to ask a question in the chat. How would you define clickability? Because when we looked at the questions, it seems like there's a lot of different ideas about what clickability is, and they were all accurate, but there's a certain way I want to talk about it today. But what would you describe as clickability, or what are some of the challenges that you have with clickability? Carmen says calls to action. You're getting there. You're definitely getting there. Anyone else willing to? Interactions with our media, quality content. Oh, now we're getting lots of answers. This is great. Something that causes people to click something on your site. Enticing people. Thanks, Hayali. Visual impact, engaging, anything that makes the person click through to your website. I think, Heidi, you're really hitting the nail on the head here. Engagement, grabbing attention. Clickability is engagement. Oh my gosh, I love all these answers. There's so many answers. Or into your site from another. Easy to find, clear expectations, something that makes you engage. Okay, so all of these answers are really, really fantastic. And there's so many of these things that I'm going to hit on today. But when I'm talking about clickability today, and you're going to see these themes go through the entire presentation, I'm talking about attention and action. So I am talking about likes and shares and things like that, but I'm talking about conversion. Like, how do we get people to actually do what you have asked them to do? How do we get them to buy a ticket? How do we get them to visit? How do we get them to actually push that donation button? And there's a couple of themes that you're going to see throughout the exhibition, the presentation. I'm going to be saying the word exhibition a lot of times today through the presentation that I'm going to be saying over and over and over again. And the first one is audience-centered messaging. One of the biggest habits that I've seen organizations get into is just talking about themselves and announcing things all of the time. And of course, you have to talk about yourself, and of course, you have to make those announcements. But if you can pull in your audience and allow them to see themselves in the story and really allow them to be the hero, and then you are the guide taking them to either solving their problems or guiding them to their wants, needs, and desires, then you're going to get a lot more engagement than you will just by announcing things all the time. And the second thing we'll be talking about is reducing friction. How can we make that action that we're asking them to take as easy as possible? So I want to show a couple of examples of both audience-centered messaging and I think I just realized today when I was reading this, it says center-erd. So there's a funny little typo in there. But anyway, Nike is king at this. So they are so good at allowing their audiences to see themselves in the story. So you will never see them just showing off their shoe and saying, we have the latest, greatest technology in rubber and shoelaces, and it's really cool to wear. They're not benefits focused. So they don't celebrate the shoe, they celebrate the people wearing the shoe. And then if they celebrate these athletes, people can start to see themselves in that story and relate to the story. So I'm going to show you a lot of examples of that. And the second thing is reducing friction. So if any of you have ever read this book, Atomic Habits, I highly recommend it. But that is one of the main themes that he talks about, is that people will always take the path of least resistance. Always. So for instance, if you want to start going to the gym, you're going to need to sign up for the gym down the street instead of the gym across town. And for instance, I actually do live down the street from my gym, and that is still too much friction to get me to go to the gym. So now I roll out of bed and I hop on the treadmill. So we want to create, the path of least resistance for our audience to get them to act. All right. So let's start with website. Now, this, don't do it right now while I'm talking, but after, you might hop on your website and ask yourself these questions. Is it up to date? I can't tell you how many websites I see that aren't up to date. Is it SEO optimized? If you Google it, is it even going to come up in the first place? Is it easy to navigate? Is it clear what next steps you need people to take? And so let me show you a really good example. So I fished the internet for good examples, and I thought that this one was a really great, straightforward example of a good website that is easy to navigate and also shows you what they want you to do. So notice at the top right, there's two buttons. They're right there at the top, join and donate or get tickets. So you don't have to really think about it. You're just like, oh, that's how I get tickets. I don't have to fish through the website looking for what I need. The rest of the website is also very easy to navigate. It's easy to find, the about page. It's easy to find, how information on how to visit. It's very, very, very easy to navigate and, very slick and very clean. Okay. But notice that their newsletter button is at the very bottom. Now, this is a very common place that I see this newsletter button, and it's not a bad place. I'm glad that they have the newsletter button, but it depends on what the goals are. So right now, if you're thinking, oh, I really want to build my newsletter, then maybe I should put it up at the top or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't put multiple buttons. I wouldn't put more than those two buttons. But, is it easy for them to find that button, or is there a way for them to sign up for the newsletter? And recently I've become a really, really big fan of pop-up windows. And you mostly see these in the for-profit world. So, you go to, I don't know, Wayfair or something like that. And they say, if you sign up for our email newsletter, you'll get 25% off your first purchase or something like that. So they're giving you something in exchange for the email, but it's also popping up. They don't have to find it. It's just popping up in their feed. And I've noticed a few museums actually do this. So the Museum of Contemporary of Art in Denver, they always have a pop-up window, and it changes depending on what is happening in the museum. So I've seen them do fundraising on here. This one is trying to get people to sign up for a membership. The thing they usually have is they have this really great rooftop bar. And so it pops up and says, hey, if you'd like you and your friend to have a free drink ticket or something like that, sign up for our newsletter and we'll throw it into your inbox. So again, just a really good way to like pop information in front of people, get them to click through. Now, this is not a website, but this is social media. But social media is a stand-in for your website a lot of the time. A lot of the time, people don't even go to your website. They will just go straight to social media looking for what they need. And so here's a really great example of the Boston Children's Museums. It's really funny because I'm looking here. I notice Beth, you follow them. I love that because you're in the Children's Museum world. But I love that they're taking full use of all of the real estate here. They're, using all of the highlights and putting in events and information. And it says it's open 7 days a week right there at the top. And then there's a link tree to get more information. So again, I think that is an an area that is really, really underlooked on social media. And again, you've got to think about your website as, or excuse me, social media as being, sort of like a sister website, if you will. All right. Now let's move to email. And I think email is such an interesting form of communication because it really is, if you think about it, everybody who is on your email list has opted in to hear from you. And again, we talked about building your newsletter, but it's really interesting because you can have more intimate conversations and give more detail in email because again, these people want to hear from you. They expect to hear from you. And I've heard it described that social media is kind of like a cocktail party and email is kind of like a coffee date where again, you can, sit down and have those more personal conversations with your audience. So a couple of things to think about when it comes to email is navigation. And it's really interesting because I follow a lot of emails and some are really slick. And, first of all, if you're sending an email, I want to commend you and say good job because sometimes even just getting the email out in the first place can be really, really difficult. But one of the biggest mistakes I see in email is that they're like this long, like this long. In fact, there was one Chamber of Commerce email I think that I followed. I'm not even kidding. I thought if I were to print this out, it would probably go across and I could roll it out across the room. Like that is how long that email is. So it can be really good to try to make it very skimmable. You can always have like a feature story at top, but then, allow people to kind of skim through for what they're looking for. And if you look at the one on the left and the right, it's very clear where you're supposed to click. I'm a big fan of buttons, just really easy things that you can click through. And it says, buy now, do this, donate now, learn more, whatever you're asking them to do. So let's talk about subject lines in relation to email. This is a question I get a lot. Do subject lines matter? And I want to say yes, they absolutely do matter. I can't say I have the complete formula about what works and what doesn't, but I can show you a few examples of how you could improve your subject lines. Okay, so this is an actual subject line I got, I think, last week from a museum here in Wyoming. And I'm going to show you some more stuff and I changed the name. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this subject line. It's telling me, to save the date. It's informational. It's really, good information. But I kind of know what's probably on the other side of the email. I have a lot to do. I imagine it's just saying save the date and there's nothing maybe necessarily more in the email. And so I may or may not click on it. But if you want to increase the chances, you might want to help your audience be a part of something or pique their interest in some ways. So here's a couple of other ways you could approach it. So instead of just save the date, on July 15th, you can help keep art accessible to all. Here, be part of something that we are doing. Or, say you have a really, really big goal for this year. This YO Gives help us reach our biggest giving day goal yet. And then I might say, well, how are you going to do that? Or what does that mean? So it's starting to make me more curious what is on the other side of that on that email. Okay, now here's the actual email. Okay, now I changed the name. I'm never here to shame anyone. And again, objectively, I think this is a good email. There are a lot of things in here that are well written and it's direct and I have the information that I need. But the thing I want to point out, and this is really going to start the conversation about audience-centered messaging, which we're going to talk about more in social media as well. So again, notice that just like the subject line, the first part is very informational. It's explaining something. It's saying on Wednesday, July 20, or excuse me, 15th, the museum is taking part in YO Gives, a 24-hour online giving event powered da 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 da. Okay, so again, not necessarily bad information, but it's not compelling. It's not necessarily pulling me in. It's not creating any sort of emotional connection, and it's it doesn't necessarily make me want to read more. But the second paragraph, I think, is kind of interesting. It says at ABC Museum, I just made that up, we believe art belongs to everyone. Now you're getting at something. Now you're starting to talk about like your mission and what we believe and something that you can be a part of. That belief comes to life through hands-on programs for kids in the Discovery Center, exhibitions by emerging artists, et cetera, et cetera. So that is really, I think, some of the strongest part of the email. And then the last part about how to give, I'll talk about that in just a second. So I did a really quick rewrite, or really just a restructuring of this email. So I started with the compelling argument, or the mission and the belief, and then talking more about when kids have space to create, families can experience art together. You could also approach this with a question. You could say, what does ABC Museum mean to you? Or you could try to spark nostalgia and ask questions about, again, what it means, or what, did you and your child spend meaningful time there, and or did your parents take you there when you were a kid, or trying to describe the experiences that they're having there and actually pull them in emotionally. And then you can follow up with all of the information that you want to talk about. You do definitely have to do that. But one thing I wanted to point out at the very end, in terms of here's how you can help. So I think that this, for a save the date email, you may not want to go into that much detail. However, if this were the actual ask, like, hey, today is July 15th, we're looking for your help. I would be a lot more concrete in my ask. I would talk about a specific goal. I would talk about how to what that goal will mean, what impact will that have? And then maybe instead of saying like you can give whatever you want, you could say a very specific amount. And for instance, you could tie it to an outcome. If you give $25, then it could mean this. If you give $50, it could mean this. But again, I think that getting people to click through, they need very, very direct asks instead of just like kind of give whatever you want. So my point in bringing this up is sometimes if you can just switch your messaging just a little bit to start with your audience and start with what matters to them in relation to your organization, it's going to pique their interest a lot more than you just kind of, I call it talking at them or providing them information. All right. Okay. And we're making pretty good time. So we're going to have lots of time for questions. And let's move on to social media. Okay. Now, this is where we're really going to apply some of these things. So when it comes to social media, there's a few things that we want to do. We want to capture attention. That came up a lot in the questions. People were like, I don't understand the algorithm. I don't understand how to capture people's attention, how to stop the scroll, how to engage them on social media. So that's going to be one thing. How do we stop the scroll? It's not always easy to get people to pay attention to what you're putting out there. And you work really hard to put it out there, and we want them to pay attention. How do we engage them once they are paying attention? And then how do we make it easy to act? So here are just a few examples of ways that you can capture attention. Now, unfortunately, we don't have time to take a deep dive. I feel like every topic that I hit on, whether it's email, website, hooks, getting people's attention, audience engagement, every single one of these could be its own workshop. So this is going to be kind of a broad overview, but there's a few things I want to point out that you may not be noticing on social media, or maybe you are, but I'm going to ask you to look for it. So this first one is just a still image, but I grabbed it because I really liked it for a couple of different reasons. Okay, first of all, it has an eye-catching quote at the top. There's a lot of art and natural beauty all around us. So I'm imagining that's probably a real quote, maybe from one of their visitors. But the thing I really, really love about this is it just shows ordinary people experiencing the museum. It's not trying too hard to be overly polished. It's not trying too hard to, create content. It's just showing real people doing real things. And I can relate to those people. I think that looks like a really great museum to go to. So that's one way that you can capture people's attention, sometimes by, big titles, but also just, things that look relatable to you. Now, the second one is a video and it's a reel. And this is something that I didn't actually used to notice that influencers did this or that people had these very intentional hooks in the very beginning of their reels. And again, we don't really have time to take a deep dive, but I did want to mention that we're going to talk about reels in October, an entire Museum Minds session on reels, how to capture attention, how to get engagement. But this is a very, very simple thing. And I want you to watch it. And then I want you, once you leave this, to start looking for some of the things that she talks about. I think I shared sound. So let's make sure, hopefully it works. We'll see.
You start your videos like this, they stop because their brain is trying to figure out what's happening. If you start your video like this, it feels less like a video and more like they're watching you in real life. If you start your video like this, it's not an angle they're used to seeing, so they're gonna pause. If you start your videos with something like this, you are going to hook the viewer in and stop them from scrolling.
Okay, so this is why people, when they're talking about politics, put makeup on. And, and I'm not saying you should do that, but this is why they're doing that, is because they have to do something to keep your attention while they're talking. And let me give you an example of something I see a lot. I see a curator standing there in front of a painting and they say, "Hello, my name is so and so, and I'd like to talk about da 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 da." That is probably going to get scrolled past. But something as simple as that person walking onto camera, opening a laptop, holding a mug. Sometimes there's very, very simple things that create that pattern interrupt that you're like, wait, what are they doing? And then people will listen. So again, we're going to do a big deep dive on this in October, but you do want to start looking for it, and you're going to start to see the way influencers, museums, organizations in both the nonprofit and for-profit world try to capture your attention in that very, very first 3 seconds so you don't keep scrolling. So let me show you just a couple of, I know that it keeps doing that. Excuse me. A couple of other examples that I think encompass a lot of what I've been talking about. So capturing attention, engaging audiences, and having a clear call to action. Okay. So the Moment always does a real good job with their marketing in general. If you ever want to look at an organization that's doing a great job, look at them. And a couple of things I really like this. Again, it has a very big title that's saying, these are the must-sees at the museum. And then at the bottom it says our chief curator of film shares his and I don't know if you guys see that little icon. It's hope it's not hiding it. To guide you through what to see at MoMA. And I really love this. And actually, I know Allie is here, so I'm going to do an Allie shout out right now. I remember Allie on LinkedIn, you were talking about whatever happened to staff picks. You know what I mean? Like this happens in the library. It used to happen in video stores. Why aren't we asking, our staff picks or, the people who are in the building to talk about why they really love the exhibition or what's their favorite piece or something like that. So of course this is the curator, but I love that they're asking, for him to guide you through what is at MoMA. Okay. The other thing I want to point out is the first sentence is not a statement. It's a question. It doesn't just talk at the audience. It says, "Hey, did you know that the collection galleries change seasonally, just as our temporary exhibitions do?" So even just changing to a question, you don't always have to do it, but sometimes just asking your audience a question makes them go, "Oh, no, I did not know that." Or for instance, there was another post I saw by them where I think it was a Monet, and it said, "What music would you pair with this painting?" So again, not just talking about the painting, it's asking you to think about the painting, how to interact with the painting. What music would you, put it with it? So sometimes those simple twists can start to make it focus more on your audience and asking them to be a part of it rather than, again, just talking at them. And then it follows up with good information. And then it has a really, really, just clear call to action. Swipe to read more about da 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 da. Okay. So they do a really good job. Another organization that does a really good job is the Rijksmuseum. I think they're in Amsterdam and they just have a really good feed, and I'll show you their feed in just a minute. But note it doesn't say a question in the captions, but it says a question on the graphic, and it says, "Who is this woman?" And it's this woman riding a bicycle, uh, sticking out her tongue. And then I think in the carousel, it actually shows a woman, like another person, like reacting to it and sticking out their tongue or something. It's a very fun kind of post, but it's just an educational post. It's not necessarily asking you to do anything, but it is built in a way that can get you to stop and read more, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so those are just a few ways to capture attention, how to engage audiences, and again, have a clear call to action. Now, here is the point in every presentation that I do where I say, you know what, we got to have a heart to heart about Canva graphics. Now, if anybody has ever been probably in any of the presentations I've done in Museum Minds or any of my courses, they will know I have strong opinions about Canva graphics. And don't get me wrong, this is Canva. This presentation is done in Canva. I love Canva. I think it's super user friendly. I think it gives graphic design, it makes it very accessible to people. But let me ask you this question first on the next slide, and then I'll explain what I mean. Okay, so here's two images. One is of it, I think I literally got it from Canva, a graphic. It's a poster. And objectively, I think it's a nice poster. I really, really do. But the one on the right is an image. You know, maybe they're at the Art in Bloom exhibition or something like that. Which one creates an emotional response? Oh, Allie says, tell us how you feel about papyrus and Comic Sans and scripted fonts. If you were in the graphics that don't suck, you'll know that. Anyway, put it in the chat. Which one creates an emotional response? Carmen, the right? I'm the humans, right? Ding, ding, ding. That is correct. Definitely the photo. Now, I'm not saying that graphics don't have a place. I support posters, you know, putting them up in coffee shops. I support brochures. That's fine. But we're talking about social media right now. And I think this is one habit that organizations get in is that they just kind of get into Canva and they're always making graphics and they're just kind of announcing things all the time. So I like to distinguish these by saying the one on the left is information, the one on the right is connection. People see themselves through, they respond. Let me put it this way. And I'm both a photographer and a graphic designer. I have a degree in photography, and this is part of the reason this is a hill I will die on. But people emotionally connect more with imagery than they do graphics. Okay. So I think I show this slide every single time too. This is what I see all over the place. You know, oh, we got to announce something. We got to hop into Canva. We got to make a graphic. Oftentimes they're very off brand. There's no consistency in fonts. And again, to me, and you can tell me if you agree in the chat, I feel like I'm being yelled at, honestly. And it's interesting because I had this conversation with a social media manager once who was using a lot of graphics, and they said, you know, I just worry that nobody's going to pay attention if I don't yell at them, basically, or I don't absolutely capture their attention. And I said, you know, it's actually kind of the opposite. When the rest of the world is yelling, sometimes your whisper actually will get through. So again, this is something that I talk about quite a bit. But Canva's great. Again, but it can also take the pressure to not have to like make a Canva graphic every time. So let me show you a great example of a social media feed. Just like we were talking about Nike, IKEA master marketers. Oh my gosh, there's even something called the IKEA effect, where people take more pride in their furniture because they had to actually put it together because they invested time in putting it together. So they're proud of it. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But let's look at their feed for a minute. So notice, like Nike, they're not just showing off their furniture. They are showing it, but they're showing it in the context of your life and your lifestyle. And they make it very, very relatable. And, you know, this person's eating an ice cream cone from the food bar. And it really starts to become more about an identity and a lifestyle more than just, again, trying to sell people on buying their stuff. I do have to mention, just because I'm proud of IKEA, I also love, if you look in the bottom right corner, they are unapologetically inclusive, which I think is really, really wonderful that they're willing to keep doing that. But again, notice how many people are in these images. I've even actually seen them interview their staff. I think it was a guy in front of a bed, and they were like, "Do you sleep well at night?" And he's like, "Not really, but I do really like this bed," or something. But it was a very authentic, very human interaction, and they're again taking advantage of showing the people who actually use the products. Okay. So one more feed, and then there's one more thing I want to talk about. But here's an actual museum feed. So we talked about IKEA, but here's the Rijksmuseum again. And I think that they do a really great job with their marketing. You might peek at it. Sometimes they zoom in to, and do real close-ups on their paintings. They always have these, like, not in every post, but throughout they'll ask questions. This Goya painting is hiding a secret. So now you've piqued my interest. Now I want to know, well, what secret is it hiding? Which artists love to paint drunk people? I love that. So they have these really curiosity headlines, but they also are very, very image heavy and really like to tell the stories behind their exhibitions. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about, and then we're going to have plenty of time for questions. I'm really, really happy. So is calls to action. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, when we were talking about emails. But really going back to that friction piece, you really, really need to be clear on what you are asking your audience to do. It needs to be clear, direct, and easy. Now, something came up in the questions. I think it said something about a 2-click rule, which I have heard before. And I'm going to sort of double down on that, meaning it shouldn't be more than 2 clicks, but I'm going to actually say it should be as few as clicks as humanly possible. So if you can even get it down to 1, then you're in better shape, because unfortunately, we are lazy sometimes and we have the attention of a goldfish. And that's just what we're dealing with here. So one suggestion I wanted to make, or actually, let me say something about this slide. This is an actual example of where I did not end up registering for something because there were 3 clicks. Okay. So remember, a link in bio is a click. That's something you have to do. Okay. So unfortunately, I've never liked that about Instagram, but you have to actually go to the link in bio. Okay. And this was for maybe a visiting artist talk or something like that. And I was interested, but then it took me to the website with a registration button. And then I fell off. I gave up. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm tired. I don't know if I want to go register, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit that, but that is how we are. So if you can skip the website with a button, go straight to the Zoom registration, then you're more likely to get people to actually click through and act. And the last thing I want to say about this is there are platforms out there, and I don't think they're super expensive. Again, I don't see it a lot in the nonprofit world, but I see it a lot in the for-profit world, where you've probably experienced this, where somebody is online and they're trying to sell their course and they say comment freedom in the comments or something like that. And immediately within seconds, you get something in your DMs that says, hey, thanks for signing up. Here's the information, blah, 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 blah. And again, they make it as easy as possible. So you don't even have to leave Instagram to actually act. And I think especially for fundraising, these could be something that could work really, really well. Comment donate or comment impact or something like that. And then immediately the donation link goes right into their DMs and makes it as easy as possible to get them to click through. And then the last thing I wanted to mention on this note too is if you have a checkout page, you really want to make sure it's integrated with Apple Pay and Google Pay, or as many, pays as you can get. Because if you can also avoid people having to put in their credit card, that's one less thing that they have to do. They don't have to get out of bed. They don't have to go downstairs and get their wallet. They just go beep, beep, boop, done. So hopefully these have all been really helpful ways to think about clickability, how to get attention, and how to get people to actually act. So in summary, really it comes down to we want to create an emotional connection with our audience. We can do that through audience-centered messaging, strong branding and visuals, and again, make it really, really clear and easy to act. So I'm seeing a ton of questions in the chat, so I'm really, really happy about that. And I have another typo. What's up with me and typos today? I guess I'm usually like really good at this. But I wanted to say if anything is resonating with you, or these are areas that you're not feeling particularly confident in, I do want to mention my arts marketing studio. And I actually know there's a lot of people in the room who took the pilot program that was run in May and June. And I'm really appreciative that you were here. So we ran a pilot program in June, and I'm running the second cohort. So basically what it is in just 4 weeks, you're going to transform your branding and messaging so you can create deeper connections with your audiences. And I like to call this the ABCs of marketing. So first, we're going to start with our audience. We're going to make sure we know who we're talking to, and talk about ways that we can better engage with them. What are our shared values? We're going to talk about refining your brand, making sure that everything you put out there is on brand and very distinguishable to be your organization and not just anybody else. Then we're going to talk about content and content strategy. This is one of the biggest struggles I think people have is feeling like they're scrambling to get the information out. So we talk about strategy, but we also talk about systems to make it easier on your life. And then we talk about storytelling, which is very, very much at the heart of how to create deeper connections with your audience. So it's launching July 21st. We meet for 4 weeks every Tuesday for an hour. And then I added this because people said, I really feel like I needed time to work on the worksheets. So I added a Thursday as well. So Tuesday, Thursday, you don't have to come if you don't want to, but it's making space for you to work on your worksheets and actually create the marketing plan for yourself. So last few slides, and then Beth, I promise I'll let you talk, but this is a done with you marketing program. It's 4 live group sessions, 4 Q&As. There are workbooks for each topic. I'm also this time going to include an AI marketing guide. This will explain to you how to set up your personal marketing assistant on ChatGPT. I'm only opening up 10 spots, and there is a reason for this. As much as I would love to have 30 people in the room, one of the specific pieces of feedback I got was that the people who did the last cohort really loved the small group where they could share information with each other. So I'm only opening up 10. I would love to have you guys be a part of it. Absolutely satisfaction guarantee. If you do 1 or 2 sessions and you absolutely hate it, email me. I'm happy to refund your money. And it is an investment of $297. So the last thing I want to say is a lot of this information that I'm giving in this program, I have actually done when I do it one-on-one, I have charged up to $12,000 for this information. So the idea is to make it a very accessible price, group coaching, and where you can still accomplish the same thing. So the last thing is just here's some testimonials you can read really quickly. I am going to put my community in the chat, but if you can comment studio, if you're even remotely interested, comment studio in the chat, and I will follow up with you personally to give you instructions how to actually sign up. If you're not ready to sign up, still join the community. There's lots of free resources in there, but regardless, you go into the free community and you purchase in the classroom. So go ahead and put studio in there, and
I
we
also
would
just
love
put the
to have you.
link.
Thank you, thank you. So either way, studio, I'll email you. If not, just go to the community. Now, Beth, let's turn the time to you.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Right? Exactly. I love it how
Mhm.
Rainey can give all these great tips and tricks and then have it roll right into like, hey, if that made you curious,
Yeah.
here's some more goodness that you can learn a little bit more. And really, that's what this call is all about, to like give you some good information, but also give you the avenue to learn more because there always is more to learn. And I have been following the chat here, and there is a lot to learn right here in the chat. And there are so many knowledgeable people. I've been screenshotting things over in the side so that we can talk about it during the Q&A and everything like that. So, with that in mind, here are a few questions about the things I do. And knowing that, again, if you're curious and you're a person who's opening or growing or reinventing your museum in some way, or you feel like your team is stretched a little bit in some way, or you're looking for a seasoned museum person, a thought partner, a museum strategist to come to your building, I'm your girl, right? I'm so excited. I have done a couple projects recently with an emerging museum that literally just said, "Can we get on a call for an hour? I have a concept plan and I want to hear your opinions because I'm not a museum person." And I had another museum call up and say, "Hey, we're going to be closed for the week of Labor Day for major cleaning, and I want to do some professional development for my team. Can you come up and facilitate a half-day workshop for them?" Heck yes. That's what I love to do. It's fantastic. So reach out to me if you're looking for any of those type of helpers in your museum. I have so many things to offer. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say something about Museum Leaders Academy. That's on the next slide. I run a professional community called Museum Leaders Academy. There are Museum Leaders Academy people on this call today, and I think they would vouch for the fact that community is crazy powerful. Just having a place to ask questions, just having a place that you can feel good about saying, "I don't know," and having a place where you can say, "Oh my gosh, friends, we had 3,000 people here for this giant event, and my feet hurt so incredibly bad." And all of us come to you with, "Oh my gosh, you are amazing. That was so phenomenal. We know that you were excited." And so there's such amazing levels of support inside of Museum Leaders Academy. It is fantastic. I love it, love it, love it. It is an annual membership, and we love, 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 love all the people that are in there and all the information that's going on. Just last night, I had a thought and I was like, I wonder if anybody's read this book. So I posted it and I said, "What are your opinions about this?" By the time I woke up this morning and got back from walking the dog, I had 10 different comments on there saying, "This is my opinion. Oh, hey, here's a free digital download of the document. Here, this, that, the other thing." Literally saved me $130. I was like, "Oh my God, it's fantastic." So, if anything, there you go. If you have any questions, just message me. Go to Museum Leaders Academy. It will uh, give you more information. And if you want to just peek in, the first level is a free level where you can go to ask the community. And then beyond that, it's a paid level for weekly office hours and things like that. So, all right, should we get on to what's coming next month? Oh my goodness. So, if you've known me for a while, a couple years now, you know that I love, love, love an exhibit that's a bit of a shapeshifter. An exhibit that we call transitional or temporary or kind of changes here and there, and it has some flexibility. So a couple of years ago, and some of you in the call today might know, I did a session at the Association of Children's Museums Interactivity that was all about just that, transitional, temporary exhibits, all kinds of exhibits that fill empty galleries. And I'm bringing it back. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a snapshot of that, what that session looked like, the content that I provided, and we have a really sweet checklist of all the things that you have to think about when you're filling an empty gallery and being creatively resourceful. So maybe that brings means bringing things from storage, all kinds of different things like that, but making it an exhibit, not a cart of imagination playground blocks in the middle of a room. So that's for next month, coming up in August. I'm really excited for it. All right, let's see.
Thank you.
And thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you. I love it. All right, let's move to questions. I did some screenshots over here. So if anybody has a question, we have lots of people on the call. So raise your hand in the reactions down there if you have a question. But also, we're going to have some questions that came in on the side. So let me start over here, Rainey. Let me see. Um, Abby, Abby, if you're on, you could probably expound on this too. Abby asked early on, we struggle a bit with the potential to come across as immature or compromise our expertise. And this is in regards to social media. Are there suggestions for getting leadership on board with more dynamic intro formats? That's one's for you, Rainey. Let's start in with a dive. Ooh, Jamie has something too.
Would you be willing to expand on it? What you mean by immature?
Sorry, I don't mean to jump in. I just want to know who Abby is or where she's from. Like that, I feel
Right,
like that's going to help me with immature.
exactly. Abby Anderson. Abby Anderson. Not sure if she's still on the call or not. And I just screenshotted what was there. So I don't know Abby's museum, but Abby Anderson was the commenter. And yes, coming from the Children's Museum field, we are not beyond being immature about things because a lot of our business is based on that. So I don't know. I don't know as if Abby's on the call or maybe she had to leave.
She had to leave.
Somebody
Okay.
else commented for her. So Rainey, maybe give us the scenarios of if you're in a art museum or science museum or things like that in regards to her question.
Will you repeat the entire question? There were a couple parts to it.
Yes, we struggle a bit with the potential to come across as immature or compromising our expertise. Are there suggestions for getting leadership on board with more dynamic formats?
I think my best answer to that is to really dig up examples of what is working for other organizations. I always say don't try to be another organization. Like I show the MoMA all the time. Like they're like the standard that I show, but I say don't try to be the MoMA, but copy their strategy. Definitely copy their strategy, with your own identity. So I think especially as far as getting other people on board, showing examples of like this is what we're striving to do. I wish I had a little more detail about what she meant by immature. I'm guessing it maybe
Mhm.
is a children's museum or something like that. But again, as far as getting people on board, I think that sometimes that's the proof in the pudding. Like, hey, this is really working for them, maybe that's something that we should do. But when it comes to children's museums, and a lot of things, honestly, immature can be a very subjective thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if I talk about this all the time, but I think it's the National Gallery has this older woman who speaks in Gen Z language. I'm definitely going to show that when it comes to the reels. And she's hilarious. And it's a risky way to market yourself, but it works. And, some people might think, well, that's immature, that she's just talking, in this slang all the time. But it's actually so funny that people start to actually look for it. So, I think there are ways, again, if it's a children's museum, you can be playful without being immature, and you can still be playful and professional. So that's with only not entirely understanding the question. I hope that some of those answers are helpful.
And I see too
Mhm.
in the comments, Sarah, I think you put it well. She said she may be talking more about the fun versus the scholarly posts. So we
Right,
could
right.
extrapolate all those
Yeah.
things for sure.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I like that so much. And yes, that older lady,
It's
I
just so
actually
funny.
just saw something recently too that she's like up for awards, like
Oh,
social
I'm
media
sure.
awards. Like
Yeah.
her organization is up for some social media awards and she was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I am beside myself." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you are so
Yeah.
hilarious. It's so
Yeah,
good."
but she's created a buzz and it definitely is working. But again, some people might think, oh, we're above that.
Right?
But
Right. All right, we have let's see. I don't see any hands up. So let me continue on. Let's see. Someone, Delaney Lemke. Ooh, I see your name
hi,
on my
Delaney.
screen.
Delaney and I
Delaney
work
says,
together
we
in
have
a
a display
program.
by our entrance. Delaney, you want to tell us more about your display by your entrance?
Oh yeah, that was about the staff picks comment. We
Yes.
we have a rotating exhibit. It's like a small box, and our staff get to pick an artifact from our collections to put in there and make their own panel with our curators. And those videos have done really well for us. So it's just kind of a fun way to feature new things from the collections.
Mhm.
I
I
love
love that.
that personal take on things too. Like I'm the person that goes to a restaurant and asks the wait staff what their favorite thing is on the menu
Mhm.
because I want to know that like personal connection. And I
Mhm.
think that this is a prime opportunity to do that. And even if it's just your staff saying what their favorite gallery is, or what their
Mhm.
favorite piece of art, or their favorite baby doll in the tot lot is, something like that.
Yeah.
It makes it
Yeah.
personal. It's the
Yeah.
We
storytelling that Rainey loves so much.
Yeah.
We also recently did a post on socials that was like your artifact, your month. So I pulled a bunch of artifacts from the digital collections, and people were excited to see what their month was. And then they share it out with their friends and their months. So that can be a cool way to feature new artifacts and get people sharing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good too. Kristen just
Yeah.
put in the comments. Our guests always ask us what they must see when they're new to the
Mhm.
museum. Why not just offer it up,
Mhm.
right? And put
Mhm.
that on social media.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There's another word that's kind of coming to mind though, and that's authenticity. There's an influencer I talk a lot about. His name's Brendan Kane, and he wrote, I think, 1 million followers in 30 days or something like that. But he talks about authenticity a lot. And he says we are in an era where we don't like to feel like we're being sold to. So like we don't actually love the polished content necessarily. He wants, he's like, just be real, just be human, show what you think, show your opinions, and a lot of times people will resonate with that content, even if it's a little bit lower production value as well. So, yeah, I think sometimes we're always trying too hard to look like this polished, perfect thing. But when you can add that human element, it actually connects with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody too, continue to put your questions in the
Yeah.
on the side
Or
because
hop
I'm
on.
getting down on my list over
Yeah.
here. And we've
I'm
got
trying
four
to think what
more
else I
minutes.
saw.
This is
I think
unusual
Jamie
for
had a
us.
question.
Go ahead. What?
Jamie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jamie McDowell. Oh my
Hi,
gosh.
hi,
Yes,
Beth.
I just yelled across the room because I am in the Jamie fan club. Jamie is
Did
very
did uh
engaging and charismatic.
did your shirt come in the mail, Beth?
Um, in the mail.
Yeah,
No, I didn't get anything in the mail yet, but I do have a shopping trip to Rural King scheduled.
obviously.
So if I don't have to,
Mhm.
inside joke, sorry, we took a minute
Sorry,
there.
we're digressing. Hey, Rainey, earlier in your presentation, you talked about
Yeah.
calls to action and fewer
Mhm.
clicks and getting people to do the
Yeah.
thing, just being direct. And then later on, when we got talking about, it wasn't quite reels. It might have been MoMA. It was the art
Mhm.
picture that
Yeah.
just had the couple of people and just I don't even know what it said, but it
Mhm.
said see yourself in the art gallery or something like that. Um,
Mhm.
how do you balance out, when you're on socials, how do you balance out a week where you want people to go to your site, you want people to buy a ticket and do all the things, but they don't want to be
Mhm.
sold to all the time. Sometimes you got to sometimes I feel like we have to just show a kid playing in our water table and having a good time. Like that's the
Mhm.
post. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I can't do that all the time because I need them to go buy tickets. So when you're
Yeah.
building out a week, like, is there a strategy that you sort of see and how you would go, gosh, we're going to post 10 times and, three of them are just fluff and cute kids and just like it and move on. And four of them are like, click to the site and read more about it.
Mhm.
And the other
Yeah.
three, I can't come up with an example. So I'm leaning on you.
Yeah, there's a few things I'm thinking about. I think there's these 3 E's, and now I can't remember the other one, but there's like educate, entertain, and now I can't remember the other one. But you definitely can have a variety of posts. So even one of them I showed didn't have a call to action. It was just like, hey, we're staying in your feed
Sure.
consistently, to make sure that you keep seeing us and you keep hearing our stories and you keep paying attention to us. Because if you're, not posting regularly, and how regularly you post is up to you, because that has a lot to do with capacity. But when it comes to, so you're talking about events, for instance, like you need people to attend something, correct?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I feel like
Um,
we all want that. We all want you to click through and buy the thing and make the donation and whatnot,
yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like that's all you're saying, which I think was the
Mhm.
lead of your presentation. So yeah, where's the
Yeah.
balance?
I mean, I wouldn't only talk about it, but I would talk about it more than you may think you're comfortable with. So, a lot of times, even if you think you're talking about it all the time, you still might be under communicating. So people need to see a message 3 to 5 times before it fully registers. And I'm not even joking. Yesterday, I was in a webinar and it said 11. I was like, 11 times. Okay. So it's like warming them up. They see something, and then it starts to register and then they act, you know? And when
Yeah.
it comes to events specifically, I can be kind of relentless when it comes to that. So for instance, if you have an event, I would tease it a month ahead of time. I would tease it 2 weeks ahead of time. I would tease it a few days, night before, maybe run a live at the event, a thank you the next day. You know, some people might think that's a little much, but again, it works. It works.
Yeah.
It's you stay up, you know, and then you could balance that with your other types of educational and entertaining posts and engaging posts and things like that. And then you can also reinforce that, you know, if you don't want to post that many times on social media, you can reinforce it through your email. So they see it both on social media and then they also see it in the email and then maybe they see it a poster at the coffee shop, you know. So what you're trying to do is have enough frequency that they keep paying attention, and it's sometimes it really is not till like the third time I see something, I say, you know what, now I am wondering about that. I've seen it enough times that maybe there's something to this, you know, and there actually, this reminds me actually to get like to a really nerdy concept. And this is the last thing I'll say. There's something called the mirror principle, but it's not mirror like a mirror, it's MERE, that the more that you are in front of somebody, the more trust they gain with you no matter what, just by the sheer fact that you are in front of them more
Hmm.
often than not. So anyway, so I have a tendency to be like, if you think you're under over communicating, you communicate a little bit more.
Okay.
So I hope
Thank you.
that's helpful. Yeah.
I often think about that
Mhm.
too. And
Yeah.
and I know that you've given that example before of like
Mhm.
you get this advertisement for a makeup or something like that, and then
Wrinkle
you
cream.
get distracted and you don't think
Yeah.
about it anymore, but then you see it again and you're like, oh yeah, I was gonna do it. And then you click on it, but
Yeah.
then you get distracted or the kids
Yeah.
need you or whatever. And then
Yeah.
that third time you see it, then you're like, oh, that's right, I need to do
Yeah.
that now. Well, then if you have to go and get
Yeah.
your credit card or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's not until that like fourth or fifth time that you actually can go through the
Yeah.
transaction, you know?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think about that often in my stuff too, is that like, should we just be rerunning a bunch of our stuff that performs well
Mhm.
because people see it for seconds? And again, the
Yeah.
goldfish,
Yeah.
we're not remembering.
Or goldfish, yeah,
So,
be a goldfish.
right.
Yeah, this is the last thing I'll say. I had a client that we were talking about getting their email up and running, and he said, I want to send an annual email. And I was like, no, 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 no. Do not send it at least a quarterly, you know, because again, they will forget about you if you disappear, you know,
Right.
and you definitely don't want to harass your audience. I'm not advocating for that, but it is a delicate balance of, you know, feeling like you're in front of them enough
Mm,
to keep reinforcing that message that this matters. And if you don't sign up, you're going to miss out, you know. So I hope that's
mm,
helpful.
mhm. All righty, we are 2 minutes after, and we
Mhm.
super, super, super appreciate everybody who stayed for an extra 2 minutes and came along with us for this fun adventure about getting clickable. It's been great, great, great having you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you next month for Sweet Spot exhibits. Yeah, I love the exploding heart reaction. That was fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. If you want to stay on for the after party, we will begin in about 2 minutes.